few notes that I'll share with you, and then mainly, hopefully, we'll have a Q&A session. Talk about the real world and stuff like that. The reason I made notes is so that I will look professional and you'll think highly of your teacher. If your teacher gets you a good guest speaker, then it must be his credit. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was 9 years here at IPA. I was also heading the Career Development Center. And so we used to interact a lot with students with regard to the interview process and writing CVs and this and that. And I must say it was very sad to see that people don't do any preparation before they go into the job market. Okay? So to give you an analogy, supposing you were invited by Pakistan Cricket Board to come to their trials, selections, or whatever not. Do you think I or anybody else can give you tips on batting or bowling before you go to the camp? It's your whole life's preparation for cricket selection. You play in school, you play in college, you play under 16, under 19, all sorts of different things. There's a huge process by which you play, by which you get selected. And it's that preparation that is what is helping you. Okay? We only see the top portion of anybody who's been successful in his career. Maybe we'll see his car, we'll see his house, we'll see his title, but we have no clue what it is that he's gone, what has gone on below that for him to be that successful. So even people who do get recruited, they've done a lot of work in their life. So I'm going to talk to you about preparing your life to write your CV, and then when you've done your CV and then you go to an interview, what it is that you should expect, maybe not expect, and some of the surprises that will come your way. Can you hear me, or should I put the mic on? Yeah. Okay, good. I came last week to another teacher's class and I spoke without a mic and I hurt my throat, so anyway, so let me look at my notes now. Okay, so as I said, today we will be talking about getting your life ready. It's amazing how many students will come and preparing for the interview. Say, what should I say when they ask you, tell me something about yourself? Can somebody else tell you what to say? So I always say, tell them, you're an idiot. You're the best idiot they'll ever hire. No, sir, how can I say this? How can you ask me this question? You're just proving yourself. Okay, amigo. These are things that you need to think of about yourself, prepare yourself, practice, write it down. It helps you a hell of a lot. Write down the things that you would like to say about yourself. And remember one thing, okay? When they ask you things, oh, I'm very hardworking. How hardworking are you compared to the other guy? Everybody's hardworking. Everybody's from IPA. Everybody's got a 4.0 GPA. What is distinguishing you from anybody else? You know, if you went to buy an air conditioner and the salesman told you, oh, it's 1400 BTU and it has 220 volts and it does this, that, and the other, he's not telling you what the benefit to you is. He's telling you the feature. And what people do with their CV and what they do with their interview is regurgitate the features that are on the CV as opposed to the benefit to the organization. One mistake that people who have a lot of experience make is that they will write down their job description, not the achievement. So these days, of course, this was before my time, nowadays all recruitment is done online and people fill in forms and whatever not. You need to have certain active words in your CV that then get picked up. What is it that they're looking for should come up as a highlight in there. So let's share some hard truths about some personal experiences, some of your personal experiences, what actually happens out there. Okay? So it's what would you like your starting point to be? How to prepare your CV? How to prepare your life? What are you going to put in your CV? Let's say you're fresh now, graduating. What will you have in your CV?
Work experience.
Pardon?
Work experience.
What, okay, internships and?
Society work.
Okay, yeah. Now let me just say, internships also, for a lot of people, depends on the mama chacha connection, so you got an internship. Okay, nice company. So is that something that I should take into account? By the way, I have been involved in more than 1,000 recruitments, more than 3,000 interviews, which means multiply that by another 3, those amount of CVs that I've looked at, from internships to management trainees, all the way to CEOs. Okay? So I know a little bit about these things. So you might say, oh well, I interned at Citibank. Oh well, your uncle is there. Somebody was there. So what was the nature of your internship, and if there was any achievement? Right? Society work, very important. Because a lot of students don't take the benefit of doing society work in order to build up a CV. And let me tell you something else. Your time at IBA or any other institute is not only about academics. The content of your academics you can get from the internet. Okay? What it is, it's about the relationships that you have here, the work that you do, the leadership positions that you take on, the responsibilities, overcoming challenges. Okay? So the basic interview also, they'll ask you, tell us about a challenging time that you had. They'll tell us about a non-academic achievement that you had. And then what will you say if you don't have those achievements? And it's very sad, I tell you, how many students would come with their really, really blank CV because they never participated in societies and never did any other work, extracurricular work. There was a time, this was at Shell, when most of our recruitment for the management training program was IBA and LUMS. Okay? And you talk to the to the LUMS student, you know, they had such a laid-back attitude because at LUMS, everything was so well taken care of for them. By the way, in those years, IBA was a real dump. Okay? And you talk to the IBA student, and they will say, their achievement, oh, we got this done, we got that done, we got this, over and above the objections of the administration, because the administration would say, you get the funds and you do it yourself. And they would do it. They were showing entrepreneurship, they were showing leadership, they were showing creativity. Okay, but now you've got all the facilities here. I'm taken care of. You know, it's like going to a theater and you're sitting back in your seat and say, okay, entertain me. But that's not how the situation became so bad that many multinationals did not want to see students from IBA and LUMS because they had this entitlement attitude. And that's sad because 3 or 4 people go and make a mess of things and it spreads around that these people are no use. So you need to be really conscious about those kind of things. So what else would you have in your CV at this stage in your life?
I actually have a question. You mentioned that PCAs are very beneficial when it comes to applying for particular places.
What is beneficial?
Extracurricular
Yes.
activities. So what if somebody has done them previously in their previous institute but they're not benefiting from that at IBA because they have other commitments like work or part-time jobs or something?
Okay, so,
is it taken into account?
Yeah, no, so the thing is, each and everything in the CV is not taken into account. And now let me come to another part of it. It depends on who's looking at your CV. Alright? So 99% of the time, your CV will be read and scanned by somebody who's just graduated 6 months or 1 year before you. So they have no experience, they have no breadth of the organization, okay? So they'll pick and choose things that are relatable to them. Oh yeah, I did this in Lyceum. Oh, I did this in Beacon House. And those kind of things. Yeah, it's important, right? But the other part of it is when you do write all those extracurriculars, some people write too many. And then you say, where was your time for your academics? Some people are so proud of the 4.0 GPA. This used to be a favorite question I used to get when I'd come here as a guest speaker. How important is the GPA in recruitment? And my simple answer was, if you got 4.0, then I would say you should get a life. And if you got less than 2.5, I think you were wasting your parents' money and you're wasting your time. Okay, so there has to be some level of achievement, but it doesn't have to be solely focused on the academics. And as you might be knowing now, people are looking less and less, and the big companies are looking less and less at the GPAs and the institute, and more they do competency-based testing, all sorts of online testing to figure out what it is that you are capable of doing and your intellectual mindset. So putting too many extracurriculars is not very good, but things that are meaningful. Okay. So if you're into cooking and all that, how does it help me with the job that I'm doing, that I'm applying for? So the relevance to the organization is also very important. Now, something else with regard to preparation. You all have done principles of management?
Yes.
How can you be no and how can it be yes? If you'll all be BA4.
No.
CS.
Yeah.
Huh?
They're from CS.
CS? Oh, that's terrible, yeah. So in principles of management, they always ask you to look at the general environment, the task environment, and the internal environment of an organization. An organization is looking at itself. The general environment is what's applicable to everyone. So in Pakistan right now, the general environment is inflation, rate of the dollar, rate of fuel, politics, uncertainty, stock market going up. And stock market doesn't apply to everybody, but fuel applies to everybody. So that's your general environment. If you go outside of Pakistan into the world, there are so many other issues, okay, that impact each other's countries. Climate change is the biggest thing right now. Okay, so you can see that is all part of the general environment that's impacting everybody. The task environment is what is impacting a particular organization or industry, right? So if you're in the carbon fuels business, okay, it's now the dirty word. Oil and gas is the dirty word. People want clean energy, people want this. So there's a whole negativity around that. You need to be aware of it. If you want to join an oil company, you should be aware of that, because when they will ask you questions. What do you think about this and what do you think about that? And you will have to answer. Okay? Why do you knowingly want to go into an industry that is polluting the earth? Similarly, you want to join the tobacco industry. Why do you want to join an industry that kills people? And it says so on the packet. So those are the kind of things that you need to be prepared. Right? I remember a head of one of the banks out here complaining that these people from your institute have come for jobs to a bank and they did not know anything from the financial markets. And it's not specific knowledge that is required. What is the dollar rate? What is the gold rate? What is your balance of payments? What is this? What is that? These are all general environment pieces of information. But if you're going to a particular industry, you would have had to do your homework. When you do your homework, there is a certain level of confidence that comes in. Confidence and arrogance are two different things, but a certain level of confidence where you can sit up and confidently respond to questions. And if you don't know the answer, you can confidently say, I don't know the answer, I haven't looked into that. But what's happening in the general environment? The other day, I was speaking in a performance and compensation class, and in that we're talking about promotions. How do promotions take place in organizations? And I asked, I said, are you aware of all this controversy in the Supreme Court appointments? And they looked blank at me. Absolutely blank. I said, yeah, for God's sake, these are things that impact you on a daily basis, these Supreme Court decisions and the appointments, and they have an impact for 15 and 20 years. But it's there, out there on headlines and front pages of newspapers. And even if you don't pick up a physical newspaper, online, you'll see these kind of things. Big, huge fight going on in the Supreme Court. Okay? But you have to be aware of these things. Somebody can just ask you. So did you read the papers today? What's happened? Well, there was an earthquake in Indonesia. There was an earthquake. There's something else happening. You don't have to know everything, but you can't not know anything. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be aware of. If you're going to, it happens so often, people go to these FMCGs for jobs and they're talking about another company's product. And then, who's interviewing you? Okay. If you have a young person like you across, that person might be trying to show off. I've got the power you don't have. By the way, interviews are all about power also. You're sitting on this side of the table or that side of the table. So, how that person treats you. If it's an older person behind the desk, how does that person respect you or talk down to you? Okay? People always look for affiliations. Oh, I went to the same school, we went to the same area we lived in, and so on and so forth. So people find something or the other to create some affiliation. And so both the candidate as well as the interviewer is looking for those kind of things to at least build some kind of a relationship. How do you start a conversation? Okay? How do you respond? What is your body language, your posture? Are you sitting too far back? Are you leaning too far forward? All these different things come into play. But these are things that are, how would you say, most people don't observe it. But at a subconscious level, we are responding to people. Okay? And I remember this happened during interviews for some HR position. And my colleague said to me after the second interview, he said, did you realize how you were responding to these people? With one guy you were sitting back and with the lady you were leaning forward. And I realized it's because the other person was sitting so far back, it would have been a little awkward for me to come forward. But the young lady was so enthusiastic in her responses, she drew you in. You know, but this was something, as I said, I didn't realize until he pointed it out. But that's how we respond to body language. If you ever learn sales, you learn all these things in sales. You learn about eye movements, you learn about all sorts of things. Anyway, so those are very important. The other things that can happen, and these are things that are not in your control, depends on the interviewer, depends on the interviewer mood. He may have had a fight with his wife or daughter, or not got his parking spot, or who knows, come late. So people can be in a bad mood and whatever not. But luck and circumstance, the candidate order, are you the first candidate they're seeing or the last candidate they're seeing? And how does that help or hinder? Would you rather be the first candidate or the last candidate?
First.
Why?
His mood will be better.
Pardon?
His mood will be better.
Okay, that's his mood. What else?
Would be more energetic, I guess. Won't be tired. Will dismiss me.
Would be tired, yeah.
You don't have anything to compare you with.
Yes. And is that good or bad?
I think that I would rather be a last candidate.
You're putting yourself in a really awkward situation. No, so there are different things that happen, of course. First candidate has the advantage of not having anybody else to compare, so they'll make general notes and whatever not. And then somebody really brilliant comes in, and then what happens? And then somebody worse than you. So it's all about comparing people with people and accomplishments and all sorts of different things. And it depends on the vibe that you get from that person. I really like this person. And let me tell you something. If you like someone now, you don't see their faults. And if you don't like someone, oh, fingernails are too long. But so these are kinds of things that have happened. But research has shown, okay, that even judges, they have to sit so many cases in a day, right? The cases that they hear early in the morning have completely different judgments to the ones later in the day. They're a little more energetic, they've got refreshed, then they go for lunch and then their mood changes. So those are things that are also not in your control. The things that are in your control is what goes into the CV, what knowledge you bring to the table, your personal grooming, dressing appropriately for the job. He says if you're going to a startup, okay, nobody's expecting you to wear a suit and tie. In fact, I don't think anybody except mid to senior levels expect people to wear a suit and tie. But to be appropriately groomed, you won't go in jeans and sneakers. Okay, you'll go casual, smart casual, business casual, whatever it is. So you're looking. See, remember one thing. You're showing respect for yourself and respect for the other person when you dress appropriately, or you're showing disrespect if you don't dress appropriately. And so, being smart casual is very good. It's safe, okay, and it's showing respect to the other guy. But you will have done your research. What is the culture of that organization? Okay, I remember a friend of mine wearing a jacket and tie and going for the interview, and the guy said to him, "But you don't need to wear this when you are working there." He says, "I know, but this is my chance to make an impression." And that's the one chance you've got. After that, forget it. From the time you walk in the door, people have assessed you. Whether you like it or not. How you sit, they've assessed you. What documents you're holding in your hand, they've assessed you. Then we do this purely subconsciously. We are judging people all the time, whether we like it or we don't like it. He comes in a Mercedes. He comes in a Suzuki Alto. We do it, whether we like it or not. Or we know it or not, we're doing it all the time. So, what you need to do is give yourself the best chance. Let me see if there's anything else, and we can have the Q&A now. Yeah, two things. One is in the interview process, the company is buying and you are selling. Okay, and that's where the power dynamic comes. Ethical companies, okay, the interviewers are trained so they don't ask you stupid questions. They cannot ask you anything about your family, but in Pakistan we want to know generations. Okay, they cannot ask you what are your siblings doing, because you know what people do. Oh, he's a doctor, but why are you doing this? He's accomplished, why are you such a loser? Sorry. But these are the kinds of things that people are making comparisons based on the family. And I'm very sorry to say, but I sit in a lot of interviews at IBA as well, and they still call me for interviews. They'll ask these stupid questions. They'll ask a single lady, what are your marriage plans? They don't ask those questions. They do. And they'll ask all sorts of nonsensical things. So you have to be prepared. So now sometimes you can give them a solid legal answer. Sorry, but you can't ask me that. And then what happens to the relationship? So you need to figure out how to answer that. Okay? Now, later on in your life, hopefully it'll change when you become an expert on something. Then the company will be seeking you out. Then the power is in your hand also. The other thing, my favorite question to people, especially young people, why you? What answer would you give? Why you? Pardon? Yeah.
Because I need the job.
Yeah, I need the job. And so does every other 40 million Pakistanis out there. See, that is the thing. Why you? And you shouldn't. A company should never hire somebody because they need the job. Your CS students may not be familiar with this, but there's something called person job fit and person organization fit. So some people tick all the boxes when it comes to the particular job, but the person organization fit is just not there. Culturally, they're completely different. Work ethic will be completely different. Okay? From a personal perspective, I used to get a lot of offers from the senior state-owned enterprises and public corporations. I could never go there. I would not be able to fit in that environment. So knowing that means that I shouldn't even go and think about it. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to share with you from the notes I made, and I would love to answer your questions. And remember the difficult ones, I don't have an answer for. So those are ones that you've got to figure out yourself.
So ask questions. Alright?
Yes, ma'am.
You just said that companies ask question why you. So जो लोग apply करते हैं, they know the stuff, you know. जो भी apply करता है, कोई IT company में करते हैं, that they know the stuff. That's why they are applying for the IT company. So everybody knows all the stuff. So what is the answer why you like?
I
It's
told
so
you,
confusing for
difficult questions, I don't have the answer. No, seriously, the thing is, as you said, everybody comes there for the job, has the same basic qualifications. And remember one thing, you're not just competing with your colleagues at IBA, okay, plus the people who graduated before you, plus the 150,000 people each year that graduate in this country, and plus people who come from overseas and whatever not. So what is it that you are bringing to the table that the other guy does? Okay. When we make a selection of even going to a restaurant, there is a why. Okay, I'm getting something out of it. Okay, what's in it for me? The biggest motivation that people do anything. Why should I do it? What's in it for me? So the same thing. If somebody's asking why you, what is it that you can bring to this company that other candidates don't? Okay, so you can't say things like I'm hardworking. But if you say I'm innovative, which is a good thing especially for a startup, give us example. Tell us about a time. Okay. Sorry to say this, but you know they have all these interview training sessions and whatever not and grooming and all of that. People come up with all the buzzwords. At one time it was sustainable. Okay. Now it's climate change. Do you know anything about sustainability and about climate change? So when you put things on your CV also, you should be able to justify it. If they ask you things that are like not even on your CV, tell us about the most challenging time that you had. Tell us about this, tell us about that. Those are what you call behavioral competency interviews. They're asking for your experiences and no book knowledge. You should be able to tell them what the situation is, what is it that you accomplished. So they're looking to see, you know, your thinking ability, looking at your achievement. Because achievement means working with people and through people. And then the relationships that you have developed. Okay? They can ask you negative questions also. Tell us about a time when you failed and you didn't do this or you didn't do that. What was it? What did you learn? Okay. So that's another thing that people are looking for. What did you learn from your experience? I remember chairman of a very large corporation here telling me, because they used to do these management training programs and at the end they used to have a chairman's round. So each candidate had come before the chairman. And his favorite question was, tell me about some of your weaknesses. You know, we always think strength and weaknesses. Silly question is not a silly question. And the guy says, I don't have any weaknesses. And he didn't make it. Because if you're not able to introspect, मुझ में क्या कमी है, then you're never going to learn anything from life, and you'll probably be a narcissist and be blaming everybody else. So those are the kinds of things. Another thing I just remembered. To fill your CV, you put in all the reports that you've done. Term report on this, term report on that. When you go for the interview, you don't remember a thing from that. Because you worked in a group, and because somebody else did the report, and somebody else did the research, and your job was to get a contact. But you've written the report, you've taken credit for it, and they'll ask you a question. You go to Tapal Tea and because you know you've done a report on tea, they'll ask you questions and what did you say? So how prepared are you for the company and for the job that you are doing? You should have thought about these things yourself. I'm going there, they're going to hire me because of this. I'm going to be the best candidate because of this. And keep these things in your mind, keep them in your heart. And when they ask you, humbly and politely say it. Why you? Why me? See, remember one thing, I was just saying this to Professor Dr. Usman, MBBS. I'm expanding your title. Why do you do what it is that you do? Anything in your life. Why do you do what it is that you do? If you can answer this question each and every time you do something, you will have so much of insight with regard to your own motivation. Okay? And this is what is driving you. If you don't know, then you are being driven by other people. You're here at IBA, why? Think. I used to do all these interviews here also for fresh graduates, fresh admissions, and for MBAs and this and that. And people don't know why. They are doing it because everybody's doing it. There was a time when everybody was getting into IT because people were getting into IT, getting into BBA because everybody was getting into BBA. But what is distinguishing? What is your rank? Unfortunately, many times when you ask people, it's because mommy and daddy told them to do it. So I don't know, very sad. Acha. Other questions? And I'll tell you some stories also. Yes, ma'am.
So if someone doesn't like really have that book knowledge that is required of the job, so but like has that confidence, he's quite confident about himself, would they still be hired?
See, there are times when you get away on good looks and confidence as opposed to substance. If you have a combination of substance and grooming, there's nothing like it. But see, there are probably in the technical areas, people will ask you technical questions of book knowledge, because then those are direct answers that can be given as good. Other kinds of interviews will be behavioral. Okay, so what happens also in large organizations is that there's somebody asking the behavioral questions and someone asking the technical questions. If you're applying for a marketing job, you would have certainly some knowledge of marketing, of the company's products, what are the challenges that companies face, and so on and so forth. I'm talking as you are entry level, so they're not expecting you to have all that kind of knowledge, but certainly things from you. Okay, so what was your favorite subject at BBA? What did you like about it? So it depends on the interviewer as well, but there are people who will ask you, and I've sat in interviews where director finance, that to Agora, well, recruiting a senior level person, mid to senior level, is asking what his A-level results was. It doesn't make sense. 3 years ago, it really doesn't make sense what your GPA was. Maybe now because you're competing with people, but otherwise it really doesn't matter. So the technical knowledge will not be there. If you're going into manufacturing, then it will be about all the equipment that you can use. In these days, it's all these web-based applications and the languages that you can do and the coding that you can do and so many different things. There's lots and lots of technical aspects to a particular job. So if you're going for a technical position, you would need to know these kind of things. But if you're going in for a general management training program where they can move you around, then you don't need to know all those kind of things. That's why the presentation of self becomes important and the confidence that which you can express yourself.
Thank you.
So in the good old days, people used to print their CVs, okay? And you look at the CV and you reject it. Why? Because the look of the CV was not right. The paper was not right. The formatting was not right. The fonts used were not right. Okay? There are people who mix and match every font that they can. People now want to put logos on the CV. People do all sorts of funny things, as opposed to keeping it plain and simple with enough space on the margins for people to take notes. Okay, so you look at a CV and you would say, okay, fine, I'll spend a little more time on this. And what were you looking at? Maybe you were looking at the institute that you were in. Maybe you were looking at the GP and you look at extracurriculars. Okay. But what we used to do, because those days it was all done by hand, you used to go around. So, you take the companies on Chundrigarh Road and you go and deliver these CVs. You are in Shah Faisal, you go and deliver in Shah Faisal, and so on. So people used to pick pockets and then take batches of CVs of all their colleagues and go and distribute it. So I remember I was invited here, how many years ago it was in the garden, and meeting with all these young students and what. They were asking questions. I said, yeah, do something different, distinguish yourself, show some originality so the person will remember you. Okay. 2 weeks later, these girls land up at the office. I was in American Express those days. Sir, you told us to do something different, so we've come in person. I said, that's very good, nice to know. Sir, you told us to wear colored socks. So the girls don't wear socks. Okay. Many years later, this one lady who's my boss's wife said to me, "You remember what you said to us?" How the world turns. I wasn't rude and she wasn't rude, but it's just how it catches up with you, where you meet people. So the other thing, very important also, before you write your CV and while you're writing your CV, is how do you network with people? Okay. All this internet, this junk. Everybody's a follower of everybody. Okay. I have 4,000 people on LinkedIn and I don't know any of them. Okay. So, but the thing is, there are live human beings behind all those. And how do you know them? How do you interact with them? And it's through this interaction with people that you get confidence, you get knowledge, and you get further contacts. And contacts make the world go round. We say sifarshi, but that only means that you might get the interview or you might get your CV reviewed. It doesn't mean you will get the job. So that's what you need to know, but it's so important. The intern goes to the organization, he sits in one corner. All the interns will move around together. They don't interact. There's a big, huge organization. Make your contacts, make your networks. Nahi karta, then suffer. Who else has a question?
So maybe what happens in terms of preparing for interviews? How being on time versus looking prepared, and how does that matter in terms of the way you come across as a person?
Okay, if it's a real life, I mean, they invite you to the office. First of all, do your reconnaissance. Where is the office? How easy is it to get there? Do I need to get there early? Okay, I spent a lot of time in sales. And sales, if you get an appointment with someone here, an appointment somewhere there, you made sure you drove there, you parked your car, you wiped the sweat off your brow, and then you went and prepared and looked professional enough. It's the same thing with an interview. In an interview, naturally, you are nervous. Okay, you're unsettled. So you have to give yourself enough time to make it there and relax. Take a breath. Ask someone for a glass of water. Okay? These days everything is online. Okay? If it's an online Zoom interview or whatever it is, you still need to be professional. You still need to present yourself. And there's been enough advice given with regard to what should be behind you that your camera is also showing. Okay? Okay. Very often people are sitting with a bright light behind them and then you can't see anything on the screen. How you dress for that as well. How you sit. Are you sitting like this doing your interview or are you relaxed? So many things come across and it's difficult even for the interviewer to be making assessments. Okay. Assessments are judgments also. To be making assessments based on something, and unless they see you, they don't have a feel for you. And then you might have presented yourself really well on screen and be a total disappointment in real life. But then that's real life. Somebody said to me the other day, "Ke yaar, maine daraz se kuch cheez manga, and what they sent me from what I saw there was just so different." And his friend turned around and said, "Have you seen your profile pic?" So we are all advertising ourselves in a particular way, putting on false fronts. Yes, other difficult questions that I cannot answer.
One last question for me. What if you don't know the answer to the interviewer's question? A difficult question.
Simple answer. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I I don't. It may be because you don't have the experience, you don't have the exposure to it. Okay, you never come across it. That's perfectly fine. But to fudge an answer is worse. That's being dishonest. I'm surprised how many students ask, should we lie in an interview? You see, have you ever gone for a visa interview? Okay, these days even that really doesn't happen. Okay, in a visa interview, people are giving that guy an answer that they think he wants to hear. And that's what happens in job interviews also. We give an answer that we think the other person wants to hear. When a researcher comes to you and asks you certain questions, you're not giving answers straight off the bat. You're thinking, what do I want him to think of me? And that's what happens in real life in interviews. Achha, let me give you another analogy. Rishta time. Same thing, no? Process, preparing yourself, making.
Not the same thing.
No. Think about it.
Right.
There's a buyer and a seller.
Yes.
Okay. There's presentation. There's building up the expectation. Oh, my son is so great, and he'll be doing this, and he'll be the CEO of that company. Blah blah blah. Na?
People can say that for their daughters also.
No, that's what they do. She's so good and she's so this. Now now see the relationship. Okay, if you're the mother of a daughter, and your daughter is a bright, outgoing person who wants a professional career, and you're talking to a conservative family where they don't want the women to work, so you should know that culture. It's the same thing when you go for a job. Okay, if the job requires me to be to have an outdoor profile and go from place to place and here to here, but that's not what I want to do, then you know that you shouldn't go. Okay, people don't want to go into sales. People don't want to do this. People don't want to do that. But you should know these things before you go to the company, and not waste their time and not waste your time. I remember some girls here who were doing a project on women in entrepreneurship or something, but the difficulties that women have when they have to go into the marketplace. And for each and everything that they asked me, the same thing applied to men. The difficulty was just as much for men as it was for women. Okay? Now, having said that, the number of girls I know who were in sales and in the field force who said they actually had it easier because people used to be kinder to them, gave them more time, gave them the orders. I remember one colleague of mine was saying, they told her, Bibi, aap batayega, we'll give you the order. Don't come here. Okay? So the extremes of things as well. Okay? But you have men also who are maybe timid, maybe introverted, maybe this, who can't go out and do all these different things. So you should know your profile and what it matches with organizations. Now, we're saying this thinking that jobs are plentiful everybody. But the basic truth is that we apply for everything in the hope that we'll get something. I remember in one HR class we were talking about, from a company point of view, how you should set up the interview, how you should do this, and how you should treat people with respect. One guy at the back of the class says, Sir, aap kya baat kar rahe ho? They call us at 9 o'clock, they don't see us till 3 o'clock. Na chai dete hai, na biscuit dete hai, kuch nahi dete. What are you talking about, sir? I said, Acha. But if they offered you a job, yeah, I'll take it. I said, why? I need a job. So the thing is, we are willing also to take that kind of humility, humiliation, because we need the job. And unfortunately, companies exploit these things. You know? So hopefully you won't have these difficulties because you'll be so bright after this one session.
I have a question. When we walk in for an interview, the first thing that you do is you greet them. So now, I've personally had these experiences that कहीं मैं सलाम करूँ तो आगे से हेलो बोल देते हैं, कहीं पे हेलो बोलूँ तो वो सलाम कर रहे हैं. Now there are women sitting on the panel, so I shake my hand, and then there are men. I don't know what to do. I'm like awkward if they're comfortable with it or not. So how should we actually deal with these things?
It's better, okay, fine. It doesn't really matter whether somebody says hello or salam, okay? The greeting is there, right? But with regard to actually shaking hands, let them make the first move, okay? Because the interviewer has the same issue. He does not know whether he should shake hands with you or not, okay? So I found it safest not to say hello, welcome, please have a seat, and not shake hands. With men who shake hands, there's no issue, okay? But the thing okay, let me just come back to the grooming part of it. A lot of management trainees put on a suit and a tie, which is a very good thing. But the color combinations, black shirt with a black tie and a date. That's you wear in the evening to go out. That's not business attire. Okay? Surprisingly, how many men would wear the new suit with jacket with the label on the outside? They forget that they're supposed to take the label off. It's a simple thing. You should tell them, right? You should always have some kind of a folio in your hand, maybe with a copy of your CV. Okay, it's also something to hold on to when you walk in. Walking in without anything makes it a little awkward. You don't have to carry a briefcase, but a little folio or folder with your CV and maybe a copy of the newspaper that you were reading while waiting for the interview. You know, little thing like that. Women, again, how you dress appropriately for that culture. One thing that girls started doing is keeping their sunglasses on their head during an interview, which is a little, it's okay in the class. Those are your reading glasses, it's okay. I'm talking about sunglasses. Oh, carrying big fancy handbags. Excessive perfume, even for men. You know, these are certain things that being moderate in your appearance and moderate in the things that you do takes you a long way, because then the chance of alienating somebody. There was a time, I'm still talking about nice organizations to go to. There'll be hundreds of organizations out there where there are people who hate people who come from good institutes. अच्छा, IBA से आया, अच्छा, बताओ. Okay, even when I was in sales, okay, we had just got the Unilever travel account and this and that, and this guy, because it was a shift that he did not like, he used to harass the hell out of me. Acha, Mr. American Express. He had that attitude. Now what to do? There are people who are like that. Even in organizations, people resent the BBAs and the MBAs and all these people come because you're fast track compared to these rankers who've been there for the longest time. So those are prejudices that you have to deal with. Okay?
Like we're dealing with it right now with Eco and CS students, but you're constantly saying you're BBA students.
That's true, but you know what? I'll tell you. Life, whether we like it or not, has a ranking system. Okay? I was surprised to find out that social sciences requires the least amount of marks to get in. And BBA is the highest. So there's a filtering system here as well. In the metric system, the highest marks go into science, and after that into commerce, and after then something else, something else, something else. So life has a way of filtering you whether you like it or not. Later on, you might find that all these things don't matter, but this is a time when there is a certain selection to be made based on limited number of seats and opportunities, and that's how you're going to be selected. So if you have 15 management trainees to take in, who am I going to take in? I've got 3,000 CVs, what to do? How to filter? So that's why all those different things come into play with regard to filtering down. And even to hire those 15, you'll probably do 40 to 50 interviews. Then the testing part comes in. Okay, so it's a very long process. And from the company point of view also, it takes a lot of time and money and effort. Okay, to get people, senior people available for interviews, very difficult. To line them up and then make them do the assessments, very difficult.
So I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So if a person has a lot of skills but he's never
Too bad. If you're not able to sell yourself, now you might have somebody who's very, very empathetic. Okay, and there are people who are like that. And they listen, relax. Can I get you a cup of tea or coffee or water, a glass of water? Okay, you then understand. The other thing is for the interviewer to make small talk before. You know? So a good professional interviewer has gone through this training where he'll tell you, good morning, thank you for coming. This is the position that we are interviewing for, and I see this is your name. You always confirm whether it's the same person in the CV. This is my colleague. He'll be doing this or she'll be doing that. And, we'll be taking notes, so if we lose eye contact with you, don't mind, we're still paying attention. And we'll ask you follow-up questions and you will have a chance to ask us questions. So you've got a nice opening there. Okay? Then also you can always ask, like making small talk. Did you find difficulty getting to the place? Did you do this? Did you do that? And can we start the interview now? So it depends on the professionalism of the organization and the interviewers. Okay. HR tends to spend a little more time on these kind of things. The line manager thinks he knows everything. He doesn't need to take notes. He doesn't need those. There are people who insist, I don't need interviewing skills. I can just tell from a person whether he'll be able to do the job or not. That's not how it works. You must always look to see what the technical aspects of the job, the people aspects of the job, the future challenges of the job, and then that's how it goes. So when you're hiring people at the entry level, you're hiring for the future. You might be getting to do current tasks, but you're also getting them for the future roles. Okay? It's an investment in people. The cost of recruitment, the cost of a bad recruitment, and the cost of a replacement all have to be taken into account.
Sir, another question I had was talking in Urdu or English, and I think that is a problem that most of us face. Some people are comfortable in talking in Urdu, and some are comfortable talking in English.
Yeah, so you can ask the interviewer. Sometimes the interviewer also will be a little bilingual, or one will be well versed in Urdu or English. But there's no harm in saying, listen, I'm a little more comfortable in English. Now the thing is, again, if the nature of the job requires you to be working in Urdu or in English, then that becomes an issue. So that's some of the homework that you should have done beforehand. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you said that the answer to tell us about yourself is like we would know about it. Yes, but I mean we could
The
just
but is finished, that's killed your answer.
but like we could just literally like say anything. So is it just that easy, or is the interviewer like really looking for a certain type of answer?
You've answered the question.
Like just anything about ourselves.
It cannot be anything. Tell me about this phone. It's an iPhone. Okay, I can tell you it has this memory, it has that capacity, it has these cameras, that cameras. That's the feature. It's not telling you the benefit. The ease of use. Okay, and remember when you and look at advertising, because that's a very good way of doing it. How advertising is always talking about exclusive products, exclusive this, exclusive that. It wants to make it unique for you. So you are a candidate. You also have to be exclusive to the other person in terms of the skill set that you bring. That they should, I better get this person before somebody else gets this person. And that's how sometimes even line managers are competing with each other to get a particular resource. But how are you giving yourself the best chance? That is your question and that is your challenge. You know,
all these
yeah.
years, which answer did you like the most to this question? You've taken so many interviews. Was there a particular answer that you said is the perfect one for this question?
I wouldn't say any answer is perfect, but I would say, let's say it serves the purpose to take the conversation forward also. And you say, this person has done some introspection, some thinking. And because you can always, that's not just because you've given an answer, that's the end of it. You always ask follow-up questions. You could be lying. You could be making something up. So now you probe further, because that's a really good opening in terms of now what do we do? You watch Netflix? when you click on one of the movies, they give you a synopsis. What does that mean? Tell us about yourself. It's telling you there in a few words what this movie is going to be like. So writing that thing, what they call back of the envelope or whatever it is, elevator speech, anything of the sort like that, all these wonderful terms, it's just about putting into a few words what it is and your offer is on the table. Yes, ma'am.
What if someone is not comfortable answering a certain question? Like, अगर कोई ऐसा सवाल पूछ ले जो हम नहीं आंसर करना चाह रहे हैं. For example, you gave an example कि IB में कुछ ऐसे सवाल पूछते हैं interviews में जिनका आंसर नहीं दे सकते या नहीं पूछना चाहिए, तो फिर उसका आंसर कैसे दें? क्योंकि if we just directly say no तो वो rude नहीं हो जाएगा.
एग्जाम्पल भी दे दो मास्टर में कोई है ऐसा.
जैसे अभी आपने बताया था कि IBA के इंटरव्यूज में मैरिज के बारे में बताते हैं, पूछते हैं, तो फिर क्या अगर हम लोग जवाब नहीं देना चाहते तो फिर क्या करें?
Well, you know, there's a polite way to do it and there's a rude way to do it. The polite way to do it was, I'm sure it will happen sometime. And smile and leave it there. Okay? What they really want to know is how soon you'll get married and how soon you will leave. Okay? I'm sure it will happen. If I'm blessed. Allah ne chaha to. But I've had people turn around and say to them, can you really ask a question like that? But then those people, you can tell also from the attitude that they've got a certain amount of aggression which they take from place to place. So being polite, you know, one of the things in relationships is how do you deliver bad news and still preserve the relationship? How do you have disagreements and still preserve the relationship? Those are life skills, which is why I say your academics is a very small part of the 4 years that you will be here. The life skills that you will learn. You know, getting all your assignments done on time, juggling 4 to 6 subjects at a time, okay, doing your extracurriculars. Some of you may be living very far, some close. Some have the challenges of living in a hostel. Some are from out of town. So there's so many different things. And you see that the personalities or the entrepreneurial spirit of people who've lived in different cities, okay, and their worldview compared to people like me who basically lived in one city. Okay, people who've lived in a hostel have a different attitude to life and life skills that they've learned there. People have gone to cadet school. People have parents in the military who've gone really from city to city. So there's the element of discipline, there's the element of entitlement, and there's the element of moving around. So there are so many things that contribute. And so people have said in an interview that I think I have an advantage whereby I speak so many languages. I have lived in so many cities and I know how to relate to people from those areas. What a lovely answer, because you're coming into a sales job. You're not limiting yourself to Clifton Defense. You can go anywhere and talk to anybody. Some people talk about the language skills that they have. Some people talk about the entrepreneurship. Because I'll tell you one thing, a lot of students these days are doing stuff outside of work in terms of content writing and this and that and the other. And that adds to something. It shows that you have some degree of responsibility, some initiative that you're taking, and things that you can do beyond this. It's a source of income as well. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
On a scale of 1 to 10, like how many people are employed on merit and like through connections?
Okay, connections can get you the interview and the thing. Okay, if connection gets you the job and you're not qualified for the job, then the person who's doing that is being dishonest with the company as well. Yes, it happens. I don't know how often it happens and the percentage, because there are companies and companies and companies. Okay, if you take the state-owned enterprises, there's almost always some safarish from behind. Okay, you take the multinational corporations, people still think there's safarish there, but only to the extent of getting an interview. Beyond that, but it depends. If you're going to, now the other thing is, the smaller organizations are always looking for references, and that's the surety that they get. So if somebody comes in with a reference, that will be the preferred route for them. They know somebody that they can get hold of. There are state organizations that will hire from the community because they know that they can get hold of you if something goes wrong. So each one has its own reason and motivation.
Chance for last question.
सर मोस्टली इस तरह से होता है कि हम लोग को इंटरव्यू में जाने के बारे में बताया जाता है इंटरव्यू के दौरान लाइक ड्यूरिंग द इंटरव्यू व्हाट यू हैव टू डू बट लाइक व्हाट इज़ इम्पोर्टेंट एट द एंडिंग मतलब लाइक हम लोग क्योंकि बहुत क्यूरियस होते हैं कि जॉब मिली नहीं मिली एंड कभी कभार इंटरव्यूअर्स जो है वो बताते नहीं आपको कि क्या हुआ ओके वील सी एंड देन मतलब वो जो एक पार्ट होता है वो कितना इंपॉर्टेंट होता है उसमें क्या करना चाहिए एग्जैक्टली
Okay, good. That's a good point. At the end of the interview, if they ask you, do you have any questions for us? What questions will you ask?
एग्जैक्टली
So, some people say, how did I do? They have to do assessments and all that, and they have to compare you with other people, so it's not a good answer. But you can ask, what is your process going forward? Because look, this is not the only place you interviewed for or applied to. So there are other places as well. So just as they have other candidates, you also have other things that you do. So there's no harm in asking, what is the process going forward? I hope to hear from you. Again, as professional as possible. You know, I know sometimes we have a sense of desperation, but to the extent that we can show that, look, I'm okay, I'm here on my merit.
Okay, guys. I hope you learned a lot from this. I certainly did. The key words that I'm taking away are the relationship, power dynamics, buying, selling, all right, being prepared, being respectful, being polite, okay? The ikhlaqiyat of the relationship, all right? So I hope you learned a lot from this as I did. So with this, we'd like to thank Dr. For his time and the wisdom that he brings. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच सर
Nice to see you.
Okay, guys.